Again, it's my privilege and honor to introduce our speaker tonight, Donald Trump.
Thank you. You're my pal for life.
You got it.
My pal for life. Thank you, David. Wow. So nice. So nice. But I don't think I should explain to you how I met David, because it's just not a nice story. But I'll do it anyway. I sued David. I was suing him for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I didn't know him, but I just said, I'm going to get this guy, whoever the hell he is. I'm going to get him. And we had this vicious, vicious lawsuit going on for a long time. And then the judge court ordered us to meet, and it was mandatory. I said, I don't want to meet this guy. I'm going to win so much money. I don't want to meet him. What do I want to meet him for? But it was mandatory. It was what they call a mandatory mediation. And I walk in, and I fell in love in about 2 minutes. I said, this guy's a great guy. We worked out our problems in, what, 12 seconds? 11. He said 11. And, you know, we've just been friends ever since. And now I actually have a great success. Today, the PGA of America was over there, and they're looking to do very big things. But I have a great success. And when I need a contractor in this area, who do I call? David Cordish, right? Or Susie, who's even more important, if you want to know the truth. So it's really been a great friendship. And, you know, when Reed and Maggie got together, the funny story is they had a lunch. And I said, how'd their lunch do? And Ivanka said, I don't know, Dad, it lasted about 7 hours. I said, that's a good sign. It was a lunch that never stopped, and now they have a beautiful child, and that's beautiful. And my daughter is an amazing person. She's amazing. She's very exceptional. She's just you know, look, I'm talking about my daughter. We all talk. Our daughters are great. Our sons are great. Everybody's great. But, you know, Ivanka came in today, and she was a little early, and she went to the old post office on Pennsylvania Avenue. And she said, but Dad, which we got. Can you imagine? We got it. And it's going to be fantastic. But she's in charge of it. And she said, Dad, I'm all dusty. I said, you know what? If I explain it, people will understand why you're all dusty. Because she was walking around. It was 100 degrees out today, and she's walking in a building that probably was about 120. That's wonderful to have youth, David, isn't it? Huh? Youth. But she has been something really special, and all of the things she's doing. She was in charge of Doral in Miami, and that's become a spectacular success right smack in the middle of Miami. It's one of the hottest places in the country right now. And I'm just very proud of my daughter, and I'm so proud for you, Maggie, and that great friendship that you've had with Ivanka over the years. So congratulations. I want to just mention, you know, I'm in a room that, and I'm so happy you set your all-time record. I just heard it's the all-time record. I don't know, I think it's because of Cordish. He's a hard pusher, but, and David, you know, David is one hell of a guy. Boy, I'll tell you what, you talk about polarizing. Somebody said, Mr. Trump, you're quite polarizing. I said, I'm nothing compared to David. You are amazing. But between the two of these giants, they're giants, this was some great event and some great amount of money raised. And by the way, I met your governor. I respect your governor. He's going to beat it, and please give him my regards. So you're in a tough business. And, you know, I tell a lot of people, I used to think that the real estate people in New York were bad. They're babies compared to the political world. And you can say things in politics, and it's just brutal. They change your language. I'm not saying all of the media. I love to complain about media. But I've had such great success with the financial media. I guess maybe it's a little bit cut and dry. They look at the numbers. They say, hey, he did well. He did this. But the political media is rough. And in many cases, very dishonest. And especially if you're a conservative Republican, boy, they go after you. It is brutal. And, you know, I have a statement that I've said, and I've said it a lot. And it was covered when I made my speech during the week and last week. And it was, you know, many people said it was a wonderful speech, and I got good marks. But some went after me for saying things that were horrible. I have an expression that I use, the American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before, right? And the problem is they keep cutting off the last part, David. So I say the American dream is dead. I don't say the American dream is dead. I say the whole sentence. And they say, the American dream is dead. And before I get the next word out, they cut me. And then they say, isn't that terrible? Michael knows because he has to defend me all the time. But Michael knows what I'm saying. And it's terrible. It's terrible. The fabrication, the lies, the things that go out there. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a show on Fox, and Fox generally treats me good. The anchors are great. But there's a woman, Dana Perino. I hardly know her. So what happens, I have to explain the story. So she calls me up, Mr. Trump, I'm doing a book. Could you give me a tweet? Now, I have 3 million followers on Twitter and 2 million followers on Facebook. I have 5 million. It's like owning the New York Times without the losses. It's fantastic. And everybody that does a book, it's true, everybody that does a book, they all call me, Mr. Trump. People I don't even know, please. I said, but I never met you. I don't want to give you a tweet. So Dana Perino, she comes out, and I watch her on the show. Got a little problem with, like, marbles in the mouth. And I watch her on the show. But she comes out. She has lunch with me a while ago, then another lunch. And then she calls and she wants to know, could I do a tweet? And I say, absolutely. I'd love to. Let's send over the book. So I do a tweet. Her manager writes me saying, Mr. Trump, thank you so much. It was so great. Do another one, blah, blah, blah. I have all these notes. Then she sends me a card. Mr. Trump, thank you so much. And she sends me the book. And it says something so nice. I won't even tell you it's so nice. Everything's beautiful. And her book did okay. I wouldn't say it's exactly Gone with the Wind. All right? And then I see her on television on O'Reilly the other night. And she's attacking me. I say, what kind of people are these? She's attacking me. So I say to myself, that's incredible. Then she attacked me again. I said, wait a minute. She's writing me all these. She wrote me the most beautiful letter. She called me. That was like 2 months ago. Tough business, right? Then I have Neil Young. Everybody like Neil Young? I like Neil Young. So I'm at a Neil Young concert, like, I don't know, 6 months ago. I'm sitting, and they want me to go backstage. I couldn't do it. I lead a busy life, and I just didn't want to. But I like Neil Young. So I'm at this concert in New York, and Neil Young calls the next day. It's sort of funny. You think of Neil Young, it's great. Now I get a call. There's a man named Neil Young on the phone. I said, who's Neil Young? Isn't that funny? It's like a name. I say, who's Neil Young? Oh, he'd like to talk to you. I said, oh. They said he's a singer. Oh, that Neil Young, I see. I actually didn't know. I was saying, you can't put 2 Neil Youngs together. So he calls me, hey, Mr. Trump, I heard you were at my concert last night. I'd love to come up and say hello to you. I said, all right, because I don't think he does this. I said, do you ever do this? He said, I never do this. I said, well, I'm greatly honored. Come up. He comes up to Trump Tower a number of months ago. And he tried to raise money. He won like $5 million from me because he's got a sound synthesizer that makes sound better. I said, but Neil, what about all these companies that do this? I mean, they're pretty good at it, aren't they? No, mine's better. So he wants $5 million. And I said, okay, let me look at it. He met with all my people. I had like 10 people meeting with him. Nice guy. And that was that. Then I get a call from him a week and a half ago. He said, Mr. Trump, I'm in Norway or Europe or someplace. I don't know, someplace, long ways away. He called me to say hello. I said, isn't that nice? He said, could you come to my concert in Jones Beach? I said, when is it? He said, like in October. I said, it gets a little cold in October in Jones Beach. But whatever it is, I don't know. He's got a concert in Jones Beach. What the hell do I know? So I said, Neil, I'd love to. Absolutely. That was like 3 days. Then I announced. And one of the songs was one of his songs. I had like 10 or 12 background songs. Now, I'm a very careful guy because Cordish and I have to be very careful. Right, David? We can't play games. So I wanted to make sure, because a lot of press at that deal when I made my announcement, I wanted to be sure everything was okay. I had to be sure. And I said, make sure, do we have the right to, so they called up this one, that one, they signed all these, today it's a lot different. You can make like group deals. So we made a great deal. We made a good deal. We got it for a good price, okay? All these songs, they're all over the place. It's background music. All of a sudden I get this like thing, Neil Young protests Trump music. Now, of course, in all fairness, he's super liberal. I'm the exact opposite. And he turned on, and I guess they were playing one of his songs, background music. And then his manager said, oh, how terrible it is for Donald Trump to use the music. And he's with Sanders, I guess, you know, which sort of makes sense when you think about it. And I'm saying to myself, how can this be possible? The guy's calling me all the time. He loves me. He's telling me I'm the greatest. He's coming up to my office. I have pictures of him standing with me against the walls. My staff is meeting with him. And then all of a sudden, this happens. Like, it's amazing. Tough business, David. Tough, nasty. Then I have another one. American, did you ever hear this? Club for Growth. Who's more about growth than me? So this guy comes up, Club for Growth. Like, I never even heard of it. Club for Growth. Sounds good. I mean, I'm all about growth, so I figured, how bad can this be? The guy comes up, president of the Club for Growth. And I say, oh, his name's like David something. I never met the guy. He comes up. He's talking about growth. Okay, you know, I'm falling asleep. He's talking about growth. And he says, great, I love the job you've done, Mr. Trump. You've employed so many. And I've employed, by the way, tens of thousands of people. The people in this room in the real estate industry understand what I've done. I've done really a good job with this stuff. And I've employed tens of thousands. That takes care of health care. That takes care of health care. That takes care of education for all these thousands and thousands of people. And I mean tens of thousands. I have employed, over my lifetime, tens of thousands of people. And so, you know, I figured, well, do it. And my people said, oh, you should see Club for Growth. You know, they came out viciously against Huckabee, and they came out viciously against a couple of people. I figured, okay, look, you know, I'm all about it. So let's come up. He's up in my office for a half hour. And then he writes me a letter right after that. And he goes, Mr. Trump, we would like $1 million. I said, $1 million? I don't even know the guy. You know, I don't want to be stupid about this, right? He'd like $1 million. So I said, $1 million? That's a lot of money. You know, I would say even by your standards, David, right? Citizens United. I've given you probably over the years less than $1 million, and he's been working the phones hard with Trump, right? So the guy leaves my office. I don't even know his name, and he wants $1 million. So I sort of let him know through my people that, like, you must be kidding. How about like 5,000? Is 5,000 okay? Anyway, let's put it this way. We gave him the impression that the $1 million wasn't forthcoming, and certainly not very quickly. He came out against me running for president viciously. It was amazing. Now, I told my wife I'd be very presidential, so I'm not going to attack people. Like Cher. I never liked her music because it's so computerized. I think she's so highly overrated. So I told my wife I will not attack Cher, so I'm not going to, and I'm not going to attack Rosie O'Donnell, because she's not for me either. She's not for me. And I said, when David Cordish called, I said, you know, David, you got to do me a favor. I've been working. I'm all over the place. I did get that great poll today in New Hampshire. I can't believe Bush is in first place. You know, some people are thrilled. I'm not thrilled, because how could Bush be in first place? This guy can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag. I mean, we're dealing with ISIS, and we're dealing with the Persians, meaning we're dealing with Iran. These are great negotiators. We're dealing with Saudi Arabia. They make $1 billion a day. $1 billion a day, and we pay for everything. They have a problem. By the way, I'm pretty good at this stuff. Look at Yemen. Look at Yemen. You take a look at a map. That's a long border. You think they want Yemen? They don't want Yemen. They want Saudi Arabia. They make $1 billion a day. They give us nothing. Why? Why? Somebody said, oh, that's such a terrible thing. They're a sovereign nation. We shouldn't be asking them for money. Of course we should. They make a fortune. They make my plane look small time. I don't like that. I don't like that. So we have all of these problems, and we don't have the right people. So when I hear Bush is in, and you know, it's funny, somebody did a commercial today, and they show a picture of Bush, who, by the way, is totally in favor of Common Core, meaning you don't educate your kids. Think of this. You don't educate your kids through Washington, folks, believe me. You don't want to go through the bureaucrats. Many of those people just want a nice, high-paying job. They don't care about the kids in Maryland and in Virginia and in Iowa and in New Hampshire. They couldn't care less. And this guy's in favor, and he's very weak on immigration. So the last thing we need is another Bush. So I'm in second place to Bush. I hate it. And I look at what's going on, and I look at what's happening in the world. I look at what's happening in our country, and I say, we are in serious, serious trouble. We don't have victories anymore. I talk about it. When was the last victory? We don't have victories anymore. Japan is eating our lunch. You know, they have Abe now, who's an excellent negotiator, and he's knocking the hell out of the yen. And because of that, people are buying their stuff. They send cars over here by the millions, like you've never seen. Boatloads. A friend of mine lives in California. Said, it's unbelievable. These massive boats come with cars. And I always say, when was the last time you saw a Chevrolet in the middle of Tokyo? It doesn't happen too much, like maybe 3 of them. We don't know what we're doing. And I will say this, look, Ivanka likes her. So anybody that Ivanka likes is okay with me. Carolyn Kennedy, right? So on 60 Minutes, they do a piece, and it's about Carolyn Kennedy. I said, okay, good. I'll watch it. A little, you know, I wouldn't say the most exciting subject ever. Actually, John was a friend of mine, and he was a great guy. But I'm watching this piece, and she's a little naive, and she's going like, and she's against these killers. Abe, killer. He wants to destroy. I mean, these are smart people. And they have the piece, and they show Carolyn Kennedy, and they said, well, let me ask you, how did you become ambassador to Japan? And I'm paraphrasing, but it's not so different, Michael, if you've seen the piece. She goes, well, I really had nothing to do, so I went to the White House, and I said, do you have anything for me to do? And they said, would you like to be ambassador to Japan? And she goes, really? This is what she's explaining. And the ambassador to Japan is the one that really is, I mean, it's unbelievable, the power, because that's really our chief negotiator with Japan. And she has no clue. She's very nice. She's a very nice person. But we don't want her. We want, look, I know everybody I know all the best on Wall Street. I know the smartest. I know people that are overrated. I know people that are underrated, that are phenomenal, that you've never heard of. Those are the people we want. I mean, we want great people because we are being destroyed by other nations. Our money is being taken out of our pockets like clockwork. And I tell the story a lot. A friend of mine, he's a great excavator. What he does is excavate. He digs. Not bad. He makes a lot of money, big company. And he comes to me and he tells me, he's sad. He said, I just bought a lot of Komatsu tractors. I said, why Komatsu? You've always bought, you know, it's always gone with Caterpillar. I said, why'd you do that? He said, well, you know, they've just cut the yen so much. And I owe it to my wife and my family and my company and my employees. He said, I made a deal that's so good, and yet I'm very distraught. He was actually semi-distraught. And he made a deal for Komatsu instead of Caterpillar. Well, that's happening all over the place. That's just one example. I have another friend who's an amazing manufacturer. He can't get into China. He can't. You know, they talk about free trade. I'm a free trader. The problem with free trade is you need smart people like David Cordish. I put you in charge of China, David. I wouldn't even think about it. China's taken care of. Okay? Believe me. Believe me. China would be, and we have, and David knows, because we know some of the same people, a lot of the same people. We have people that are phenomenal, brilliant negotiators. And the problem with politicians, I'm excluding all of the politicians in this room because you people are in a class by yourself. You're fantastic. Maryland Republicans are in a class by themselves, so I want to preface it. But outside of Maryland Republicans, politicians are all talk, no action, nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. And you know, they are controlled by lobbyists. They are controlled by their donors. They are controlled by so many other factors, not by the good of the country. That's the problem. You have special interests that are controlling people, and this has nothing to do with the good of the country. You have a trade pact that right now is perhaps going to eventually get through. That's a disaster. First of all, some of the great business people in here would understand this. It's with many countries. And China's sitting back lurking because China wants to go in through the back door, 100%. As sure as you're sitting there. As sure as you're sitting there. And the Republicans, it's Obama's bill, but the Republicans are pushing it. Now, you tell me how that can happen. They don't talk about currency manipulation the way they should be. And by the way, a few months ago, they weren't talking about it at all. I made a speech. It got a lot of publicity because I talked. China, Japan, and lots of others are killing us because of currency manipulation. And they didn't even have it in the bill. That's how good. And again, we have a president who honestly is not a negotiator. I don't want him negotiating for me. Everything he makes bad deals. He doesn't know what a good deal is. He's a terrible negotiator. Some people would say he's incompetent. I would not say that. Yes, I would. Why would I want Obama negotiating for us? Look at the deals he's made. They've been a disaster. Look at what's going on with our military. Look at what's going on with our vets. Look at how our vets are being treated. Our vets are being treated like third-class citizens. Third class. And yet we save a Sergeant Bergdahl who's a traitor, a no-good traitor. We lose 6 lives over this guy. And yet James Foley is beheaded. We didn't fight for James Foley, who's this wonderful guy whose parents I got to know very well over the last few months, actually up in New Hampshire. We didn't fight for James Foley. He was beheaded, and he was a wonderful young man. But we fought to get a traitor who, when our country was strong, would have been executed for desertion. We lost 6 great young people trying to find him, and they all knew that he deserted. And Obama knew that he deserted. And yet we took him back. I call him the 5-for-1 president. And we gave 5 killers and leaders who are now back on the battlefield trying to kill everybody, including us, by the way. This is the negotiator that we're giving this to. You look at the Iran deal, the worst thing that can happen for Israel, this deal. They have no checks. They have no balances. They're going to continue on. And, you know, deal makers, and I talk about it all the time. I talk about it all the time. And, I'll tell, like, as an example, when David called me up and he asked me to make the speech, I said, David, honestly, I'm all over the place. I'd rather not. I mean, in all due respect to you people, I love you very much. But if I could be home with my wife, who, by the way, got better reviews than I did. Everybody said that would be the most beautiful first lady. And she got better reviews than I did, but that's okay. She would be beautiful. But, when David called me, negotiation, I said, David, look, I'd rather not do it. I really don't want to do it, David. So please. But if you insist, because I have such respect for you and you're my friend, I will do it. But I'd rather not do it. And by the way, Forbes just came out and said I'm the highest paid speaker in the world. You saw that, right? Over $1 million a speech. Is that right? More than Clinton. And by the way, with me, you know that I get nothing. I don't have to do something for somebody to get the speech. I mean, me, it's just a speech. So I said, David, I'd rather not do it. And I feel strongly about that, David. But if you want me to, I will. Now, who is going to say, he said, Donald, I want you to. It's true. Is that true? Is that true? So we need our great negotiators. We need people that know what they're doing. Now, here's another thing that was terribly misconstrued on purpose. I love Mexico. I love the Mexican people. 2 waiters came up to me tonight. Mr. Trump, we love you. I said, where are you from? Mexico. I said, that's great. I love you too. I do. I love Mexico. I've had tremendous relationships with people in Mexico. But I said, we need a strong border. I said, we need a wall. We have to get people to stop flowing into our country like water. And I said, and this isn't just Mexicans coming in. These are from all over the world they're coming. And a lot of the people are bad. Now, doesn't it make sense? These countries aren't sending their finest. They're sending people that are, got a lot of problems. Doesn't that make sense? So I'm at a wedding at one of my clubs. And, you know, whenever I'm at one of my clubs, I always stop and see the bride. Hey, how you doing? Great-looking bride, great-looking husband, good luck. They're happy. You know, now they're happy that they paid me $600-700 a head. Okay? And I'm at this wedding 2 weeks ago, beautiful bride in Bedminster, New Jersey. And I see the bride, I see the groom, and, you know, after about 2 minutes, I was bored stiff. I wanted to get out of there. But then I meet these two guys. I say, what do you do? Good-looking guys, strong, tough guys. So we're border guards. I said, what border? We don't have any borders anymore, do we? I was actually surprised. I said, no, we're border guards. We're guards on the southern border. I said, wow, tell me, sit down. I was with these guys for an hour. I found it very interesting. And they said, you know, it's tough, Mr. Trump, because we're letting people in that we shouldn't. I said, how bad is it? They said, now, these are two innocent guys. These are not guys that, you know, are looking to cause problems. They're just telling me the facts. I mean, I meet all sorts of con men and guys a little glib with their tongues. These are guys that are just great people. They're like great American people. They said, you have no idea how bad it is, Mr. Trump. I said, how bad is it? They said, some of the people coming into this country are just unbelievable. They're killers. And these aren't just Mexicans. This is all over. This is all over. All over South America, probably from the Middle East. Why not? That'll be next. They said they're killers, they're rapists, they're drug dealers. And it makes sense. You know, it makes sense. And I wasn't that surprised to hear it. But they were very down because they're not being allowed to do their job. They could do their job. We could do a great job without the wall, except I just happen to be so great at building things, I would do some great work. Okay. I'm the best. I'm the best builder. Nobody can build like that. But they were very sad. And I said to a couple of people, and then I said to them, I basically said this, we need to strengthen our borders. And they said, I'm a racist. And they said, I don't like Mexico. I said, I love Mexico. Why don't I like Mexico? And a lot of the people that come in from South America, they don't want it to happen either. Because these people are causing problems and taking jobs and this and that. But I said, I love Mexico, I love the people, and they say, I don't love Mexico. So the way they go about taking what you say, one of the advantages, by the way, to live television, a lot of people don't like doing live television. I'd actually rather do live television. Because if you do live television, they can't cut you. When I do a piece, I did a piece the other day for some. Actually, it was 90% good. But 10% was, you know, theft. They cut you around and they cut you up and people say, that was terrible. I said, that's not what I said. They'd cut me in the middle of a sentence. Or I'd go on to explain something and they'd cut me. I said, this is terrible. I like doing live television. I had a statement because I've been watching the president with the teleprompter and he gives a pretty good speech. I've seen better. I mean, we're not dealing with Winston Churchill here, folks. But I've come up with this, that anybody running for president shouldn't be allowed to use a teleprompter. Okay? Shouldn't be. And, you know, I've said it a little bit in jest, and then all of a sudden I started saying it's really true. Because if I had a screen here, and I'm looking here and looking there and reading, and, you know, we get all bored, then we all leave, and everybody said, oh, that was okay. It was fine. You don't find out the real person. You're not finding the real person. Now, it's safer. You don't make a mistake. It's hard to make a mistake. And, you know, one of the things that both Davids were really saying, I've had an amazing career. I've really enjoyed my life. And I watch, and somebody was very, you know, point blank the other day in a positive way. I thought about my career. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, which is probably the hardest school in the United States to get into, and has been for many years, even in my day. And that was before I was Trump, so to speak, okay? You know, who do I know to get into Wharton? I had really good marks. I was a good student. I had an uncle who was at MIT for many years, Dr. John Trump, one of the great scientists. I mean, like, I'm a smart person. So I go to the Wharton School of Finance, right? Get in. I see some of the smartest people in the country. They were in my class. Interestingly, and this is for you, Some of the smartest people in Wharton aren't the biggest successes. It's the people that never quit and never gave up. They never, ever gave up. You understand what I'm saying? They're the ones that are running things. Very interesting. But I go to the Wharton School of Finance, great student. I leave Wharton. I start off with my father in Brooklyn, and I say, Pop, I want to go into Manhattan. No, son. And I have a great father. He was a great guy and a great negotiator. I learned so much. Not that he taught me specifically, but I'd play with blocks at his feet while he's on the phone fighting with a plumbing contractor over price. And when I was a young guy, 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years, I'd hear this and I'd hear it. And I'd say, wow, that's great. And I had a father who loved to work. He was a worker. And he was a happy man. He had a great marriage. He had a fantastic marriage. They were married for 63 years, like just a happy marriage. And I said to him, I learned a lot because I said, you know, you can work and be really happy. It's a great thing. But I had a father who really was a teacher to me and a mentor to me. And when I look at what, you know, my career, so I go to Wharton, I do great. I get out. My father said to me, son, you don't want to go into Manhattan. I said, but Pop, I want to build these big buildings. He said, it's not our territory. And he was a tough cookie, but he was a very good man and a loving father. He said, son, it's not our territory. It's not for us. Let's stay in Brooklyn and Queens. We're doing great. Just, it's not our territory. It's not for you. You don't want to build there. That's the big leagues. You don't want to be there. I said, but Pop, I got to do it. So I was with him for 4 years. I was pretty young when I went in. And I was working with the Penn Central Railroad. I wanted to get options. I wanted to get this. I was all over the place. All of a sudden, I get an option to the old Commodore Hotel, and I fix it, and I build it. I make it into the Grand Hyatt. My father said, wow, that's amazing. Then I get involved with the West Side Convention Center, and I took an option to the site, and they were going to build a center in the Hudson River, and I convinced Governor Carey, who was actually a terrific governor, especially under pressure. You know, some people are better under pressure. Governor Carey was better. He might be a Democrat. I don't care whether he's Republican, Democrat. He was great under pressure. And he was under a lot of pressure to build it in the wrong. They were going to build it in the Hudson River. They couldn't get their environmental permits. And I had a site that was a better site. You didn't have to go on the other side of the West Side Highway. And he called me in with this guy named Dick Ravitch, who was a totally overrated person. Good public. No, it's true. And I debated Dick Ravitch in front of the governor, the two of us. At the end of about 10 minutes, he said, Donald's 100% right. And he went with the convention center. We got it built. It was a Jacob Javits Convention Center. I did many, many things. I mean, that was my deal. And then I did the exterior renovation of Grand Central Terminal and many, many other jobs. Now it's all over New York. Now I'm all over the world. Okay, so I do this, and I build a massive company that's tremendously valuable, far more valuable than people thought. I gave my financials when I gave my speech. I said, and that's another thing. I hold up my financials. And conservatively, it's net worth, not assets, net worth around $9 billion. That's conservative. So then I get people saying like, oh, when I said held up my financials, I held them up for a reason. I said, and that's the kind of thinking, and I said this, because those of you that watched it, which by the way was the #1 speech by far of all candidates, including Hillary, watched, okay? by the millions, by far. #1 on Google, #1 on speech, #1 on everything. Okay, so who cares? But I held it up. I held it up and I said, I'm worth this. I built a great, great company. And this is the kind of thinking that this country needs at the top. Because we have to take back our jobs, we have to take back our money, we have to take back our country. Other countries are killing us. They're destroying us. We can't let it. So I'm really successful, and I don't want to talk about that, but this is the kind of thinking that we need at the top. So, well, so I think it's a good message. So what gets broadcast all over the place is, I'm really rich, I'm really successful. That's not what I said. I said I'm really rich. I've done a great job. And I also said, and I'm not saying that and showing you this to brag. I'm showing you this because we owe now almost $19 trillion. And we're going up to $24 trillion, and that's called the point of no return. When we get to 24, we become sort of like a Greece large-scale version. and we're going to be there soon. So when I held up my statement and I said, look at the great job I did, and that's the kind of mentality that we need in the White House, they left the second part out. So I look like this jerk holding up a statement, I'm rich. But it wasn't meant for that. They don't leave the rest of it. These are very strange people. Okay, so I go to Wharton. I do great. I'm really smart, right? I then create this incredible company, and my father was the most proud. He said everything. You know, he was a tough cookie who, frankly, was difficult. But after he was, and by the way, Reed understands that fact. Is your father easy, Reed? I don't think so, right? But you have total respect for Reed. You know, it takes a while with these tough, smart fathers. But my father really respected me. He said, he's unbelievable. Everything he touches turns to gold. I mean, it was a nice, my father doesn't talk like that. Then I go out and I do a book. It's called Trump, The Art of the Deal. The book goes to #1 ever. It's in all the schools. I mean, it's all over still to this day. It's one of the great business books, right? And it's a huge success. And I'm #1 on the New York Times list and every other list for many, many, many months. And I'm saying, I don't believe it. My father didn't believe it. He said, gee, I told you not to go into Manhattan. This is getting crazy. Then I have Mark Burnett come to me, the great producer of Survivor, etc. And he says, I want to do a show called The Apprentice, and I'll only do it if you do it. And The Apprentice goes to one of the top shows ever. #1, many, many evenings. #1, I mean, the finale of season 1 and season 2. And to this day, I don't know if you know it or not, NBC, you know, it's very hard to have a successful show. 95% of the shows that go on television fail. There have been 15 copies of The Apprentice. I won't mention the names, all celebrities. All of them failed. All of them failed. I mean, in all fairness, one name, Martha Stewart. She did a show for us and it failed. It's called The Apprentice. Same music, same everything. It failed. Somebody said, would you have loved that show? You owned the show with Mark Burnett. Would you have loved that show to be successful with Martha Stewart? And I say to him, I think not. Maybe not. Because I know the headlines. Martha beats Trump. So I'm glad it failed. You want to know the truth. I could have made more money if it was successful, but I think I'm proud. And Martha's wonderful. But you know what? I'm sure she'll love that statement. She's wonderful. You know, now she's happy, right? But there were 15 copies of The Apprentice. So think of it. Top student, greatest school, hardest school to get into. #1 book. One of the top television shows. Copied by 15 top people, the biggest people. They all failed. NBC even renews it now, even though they know I'm not doing it. They renewed it. They said, we'll wait for you. Maybe they're hoping I fail. I guess they probably are. Maybe that's why NBC treats me so badly, David. Now I figured it out. That's why Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd is always going after me. That's what it is. They want me to do The Apprentice. Hey, I just figured that out up here. It's amazing what you can... So I have all this tremendous success, build up this incredible worth, and I have people like a guy like Karl Rove, who raised $439 million and didn't win a race. He put on a commercial that was so bad, I watched during the last cycle. It was so bad that I thought it was a commercial for the Democrats. That's how bad it was. But I watched him the other night say, Trump is not a candidate, and he won't be a candidate because he won't file. But I filed, like yesterday. But now they'll find something else. And all you can do is be honest and be truthful. And the fact is that we have had tremendous support because people are tired of being pushed around. They're being tired of our military being obsolete with its materials, with its weapons, what we're doing. The other day I saw a report that the enemy took over 2,300 armored Humvees. I said, no, you don't mean 2,300. You mean like 3. Think of it. 2,300 vehicles. And these are very, very expensive. Armor plates, the best you can get, brand new. We gave them to our so-called partners, and a gun was fired into the air, and our partners ran like a bunch of thieves. And the enemy took over these cars. 2,300. Who ever heard of so many? How did they get them over there? We have people that don't know what they're doing. We have a Secretary of State, who I think is a very nice man. I've met him a couple of times. But he's our chief negotiator with Iran. Now, you know how important that is? Because nuclear weapons are so important. And he gives up on everything. This guy gives up on everything. We're losing on every front. Again, the Persians, great negotiators, but they go back, and they go back to Iran during this break. Now, David Cordish is sitting here, and he's probably saying that, how long is that negotiation? This negotiation, David, has gone on forever. We were almost children when it began. It's the longest negotiation I've ever seen. You know, we're not sending a rocket up to the moon. We want inspections. We want this. We want that. We don't want you to make nuclear. We don't want weapons. So we say we don't want this. They say no. Oh, well, how about this? No. And they just keep saying no until they get what they want. Then we have this guy at 72 or 73. He decides to go into a bicycle race. He's in a bicycle race. He breaks his leg. I promise, I will never enter a bicycle race. Ever. Ever. And think of this, because we have a lot of great business people in this room. You're the suckers that paid for this dinner, right? But what would you do if you're in a negotiation to buy a building or buy a business or buy whatever, and you have a break? Now, let me tell you what the break is. I do breaks all the time. I'm negotiating a deal. I'll tell Ivanka, honey, I'm not sure I want that deal. Let's tap them along, right? We're not sure, David, right? So we go tap, tap, tap. You know, a few weeks go by. We changed our mind. We didn't change. We're doing our thing. Maybe we're doing a little number on the people on the other side. We want to get the price down. But it's called tap, tap, tap. That's what they're doing to us. The Iranians are doing that to us. They don't want to meet. They're going to meet at the end of June. We're going to not meet. They don't know. Nobody knows. Then I see Obama get up and he explains the deal. And the head people in Iran say, that's not true. And they turn out to be right. And then the top general says essentially that he's going to annihilate Israel, and we keep talking. And then in Yemen, we're fighting Iran. But we don't mention that because one thing has nothing to do with the other. We're at war with Iran and Yemen, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia should be paying for, but these are minor details. 100%. And if you had the right messenger, Saudi Arabia would pay for it. I could take 20 people, maybe 5, in this room. And I could send them in, and we have the right messenger. And if we had the right messenger, we'd say, hey, fellas, here's the story. $1 billion a day, a lot of money, making a lot of money. You're not going to have a country in about 3 weeks. Because if you think these people want Yemen, you're wrong. They want Saudi Arabia. They want the oil, okay? Trust me. They'll give us anything you want. If you said, give us 50%. No, we'd like to make it 25. No, we want 50. And that's only because I'm being nice when I say 50%. That's only because I'm being nice. So we don't have the right people. Now, Iran has 4 people. Used to be 3. One of them's in jail because he's a Christian pastor. He's a good man. His wife came up to see me. She's devastated. He's a Christian pastor and a wonderful man. But they had 3. Now they have 4. So if we had David Cordish, Trump, a number of people, right, that we know, we would have started that negotiation on nuclear. We would have said, okay, fellas, by the way, it's only fellas, they don't have women. They haven't figured out that the women are smarter than the men yet. They just haven't done it. By the way, that will take another 150 years, but that's okay. That's good for us. That's not bad for us. So if we had the right messenger, we'd say, first day, first hour, first minute. Fellas, got to do us a favor. Got a problem. You got 4 people over there. Was 3, now 4. Got 4 people over there. They're good people. They're in the most vicious prison. Let them go. Going to set a great tone for the United States. Your people don't care. You don't care. They did nothing wrong. Let them go. And it's going to be great. Going to make life easier for all of us. Right? The right messenger. We don't even bring it up. We don't even bring it up. was never even mentioned. Now, the wrong messenger won't get it. The right messenger, I would say 95% I'd be able to get it. Now, if I didn't get it, I'd say, fellas, you know what? Bye-bye. Double up, triple up the sanctions. Believe me, they'll come around. They'll come around. We want to take the sanctions off during negotiations. Can you believe? Do you ever hear of anything so stupid? So we want to take the sanctions off. So I would have said, come on, let them go. If they didn't do it, I would have walked, and I would have doubled up. We would have had them out. Now, here's another thing. We are giving them hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis instead of holding it. And the excuse and the reason is they say we owe it to them. So then I said, why don't we just make that part of the nuclear negotiation with Iran? They said, well, one thing has nothing to do with the other. I said, why? Why? Why doesn't it have to? So we're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. I don't know if you know this. It came out 2 weeks ago. And Marie Harth, very nice person, blonde hair, big glasses, right? From the State Department. She said, well, one thing has nothing to do with the other. In Yemen, we're fighting, as I said. Why are we letting them? They're shooting it. They're trying to kill us. They're our enemy. They're actually on the field. They don't want to bring Yemen up. Why? Why? Because they say it has nothing to do with the nuclear talks. These are people that truly have never read The Art of the Deal. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. So I end on a positive note. We're making a lot of progress. We've got to get really smart people in office. We've got to get our best and our finest. China has their best and the finest. I mean, Mexico is doing a tremendous number. I have great respect for Mexico. I love Mexico. They're killing us. They're killing us. You know, I tell the story about the Ford plant, and the head of Ford wrote me a beautiful letter the other day. He said, you know, you're mentioning it, but it's an amazing story. Ford goes to Mexico. They're opening up a plant, $2.5 billion plant. That's a biggie, right? $2.5 billion? And they know how to spend money. I mean, that's like a lot of money. And it's near our border, and they are going to make cars and trucks and parts and whatever, engines. They're going to make a lot of things. And they're going to have all Mexicans manning the plant. I think that's wonderful. And I said, what would Trump do if Trump is President Trump? I would call the head of Ford. And I would say, congratulations on your new plant in Mexico. I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. I think it's a wonderful thing. But here's the story. If you send cars and trucks and parts and whatever else you're going to have into our country, we're going to charge you 35%. Because all you're doing is taking jobs away from the United States. That's all you're doing. And I actually had an idea that I think is a very good one. I think Ford will probably pick it up eventually. To get the cars and trucks and everything over here, let the illegals drive them in. They're coming in anyway. It's true. The illegals can drive them right through the border, drop them wherever the hell. And then I said, okay, so it's not going to be President Trump. Let's say it's President Bush, God forbid. Or any one of the others, including Hillary. What would she do? I'll tell you what she'd do. She knows it's a horrible deal for the United States. You're not stupid. It's a horrible deal. What do we get out of it? We get nothing. They make cars, trucks, everything there. They send them to us. We have no labor. We don't have jobs. We lose jobs because they're not building a plant because they're building it. What do we get out of it? We get nothing. And there's no tax because free trade. Oh, free trade's so wonderful. Okay? So we get nothing. So you know what President Trump would do? He'd say, great. What would happen if somebody else gets in? A politician controlled by lobbyists, donors, and special interests. So here's what happens. They'd say, we don't like that Ford deal. That's terrible. And they may even call and say, we don't really like that deal. And the next day they will be met by a barrage of donors, lobbyists, and special interest people that get paid a lot of money. Okay? And they'd say, you can't do this, Mr. President. This guy supported you. He gave you $500,000 and he raised you a fortune. You can't do it, Mr. President. You can't do it. He said, but I got to. It's so bad. You can't do it. Then the lobbyist is going to call. Then the donor is going to call. Mr. President, how can you hurt Ford? I have stock. And all of these people are going to be calling. And you know what they're going to do? Let it go. 100%. Okay. So what does President Trump do? I'll be called by the head of Ford. Probably that day. They may want to be cool and do it the next day. But I'll probably be called that day, right? And he'll say, Mr. President, you know, I mean, free trade, sir. I say, I have no interest. Then they'll probably get some people that I know and some friends that I know, none of whom I've taken money from because I don't need money. I mean, I don't need money. Okay? I don't need it. So, and I would say, no, I'm charging them. I'm going to get whatever I have to get passed. Some people say, oh, you'd have to pass legislation. Don't worry about it. I'll charge them plenty of tax. Don't worry about it. So what happens is, I would say, not going to happen. The following day, I'll get a call from the head of Ford. And you know what he's going to say to me? Mr. President, we've decided we're not building in Mexico. We're going to build in the United States. That's what it's going to say. That's what it's going to say. There's nothing else they can say. There is nothing else that can happen. There is nothing else. We lost a plant in Tennessee to Mexico. Again, I love them, but their leaders are much smarter than our leaders. They're much more cunning. They're sharper. Our leaders are stupid people, and it's leading our country down the drain. So I'm doing very well. Perhaps all of those cameras back there will leave my full statement that the American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and stronger and better than ever before. And I can only tell you this. If I win, we will make America great again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you.